I will open. No, I'm not the organizer, but I'm the opening speaker. That's my name. And you are?
I'm Belgium also.
Ah, yeah.
CV Wabit.
Rabbits. Ah, yeah.
Hello, speaker. Katrina. Yes. Pleasure. Yes, likewise. My pleasure to be here. And so Belgium, yeah, just to come. Okay, yes. My only little constraint is that I've been told by my director to be at Opavio on 6:30. Okay. And going on until 7.
You have maybe to give the floor maybe in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. And then,
But just maybe reverse order.
Then I give you the floor first, and then perhaps one or two questions. And if you have somebody who's check the time.
How much time do you have?
Well, we have 3 minutes to speak. Perhaps a call for action, what we will do for the next one.
Ik ga beginnen. The seats are there reserved. Huh?
If you can.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Do you hear me in the microphones? Yes? You will need it. Oh. Do you hear me? Eens kijken bij de delegatie van de minister of ze mee zijn, want ze kennen dat systeem niet. Eens kijken bij de delegatie, heel die rij van de minister, of dat ze mee zijn. Ze kennen dat systeem niet, ze kunnen die knopjes niet bedienen. Dus dat is een knopje indrukken, 1 seconde indrukken. Should work. Ja, hoor je mij? Oké. So you need to use the headphones, because there's a lot of noise here in the hall. Yeah? Okay. So, dear Minister De Prateren, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon in the Benelux and EIB pavilion of the COP29 for this high-level panel organized by VITO, which is the Flemish Research Institute for Technological Research in a broad range of issues, also with a high relevance in climate change challenges. I'm the newly appointed Belgian Special Envoy for Climate and for Environment, and just active since 1 week, and I'm very happy also to be here at COP. It's the best way to start a new function, is to be thrown in the bath. Now, Belgium has traditionally been very active at the climate front, and our participation this year at COP29 is no exception. Last week, our Prime Minister was here to attend the high-level segment, and the Federal Energy Minister, Tine van der Straten, was also here last week. Today, we have received the presence of Minister De Prateren. Tomorrow, the Federal Climate Minister, Katabi, will come, and also the Brussels Minister for Environment and Climate. So, our action is deeply embedded in the European Union policies and delegation, and we take active part in the international negotiations, sometimes even also negotiating on behalf of the European Union. In the past years, Belgium managed to increase substantially its financial contribution to international climate change policies, and we focus thereby very actively on adaptation projects in Africa and the LDCs, and we work mainly through grants. And in this sense, our action fits very well with the theme of this afternoon's panel, which is, and that is a mouthful, discussing and learning on best practices with focus on solutions and call for actions leading the WEFE nexus towards pathways for cross-sector action and sustainable investment. Let me say directly, the WEFE nexus, for those who are not so familiar with that, is of course the intrinsic link between policies related to water, energy, food and ecosystems. This interconnection is undeniable. These sectors are not isolated, and their challenges and solutions are inherently interconnected. Climate change, population growth and resource scarcity all exacerbate the pressures on this nexus. Our ability to address these interconnected challenges will determine how successfully we can mitigate climate impacts and build resilience for future generations. For those who had already the chance to be here at COP in the past days of last week, of course, this interconnection is evident. It is practiced every day here intensely at COP29. And that embodies also the value of this meeting. The interdisciplinary research work at VITO suits very well with this objective. The role of multidisciplinary research institutes such as VITO is fourfold. First, carry out research and innovation as a catalyst for change. Second, bridging the gap between science and policy. Third, focus on international partnerships, capacity building and knowledge transfers. And fourth, the importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration across sectors. And the role of this event in shaping the future can be described as follows. First, collaboration at this conference. This event is an opportunity for all of you to come together, share knowledge, explore how we can accelerate the transition to a more sustainable and resilient world. We have a collective responsibility to shape the pathways that will ensure water, energy, food and ecosystems are managed in a way that benefits both the people and the planet. So I look forward to hearing very concrete examples of how research at VITO, but also in the institute, which are represented by the panelists here, are active in this way. And the second way of shaping the future by discussing today is engagement and action. I encourage you all to actively engage in the discussions and the exchange afterwards. The outcomes of this session will help guide future actions and investments in the WEFE nexus, and it is through our collective efforts that we can really deliver change. I thank all those who participated in organizing this session, and to you, dear ladies and gentlemen, for your interest and your presence here this afternoon. And now I pass the floor to Ms. Katrien van Hooijdonk, who is the International Business Developer for Water Partnerships at VITO. Katrien, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for this very warm welcome. Thank you. And also from my side, a very warm welcome to this WEFE nexus. I'm Katrien van Hooijdonk. I'm a researcher and business developer at VITO. We have a very interesting session today. But I must admit something. I work a lot in the water sector as a water specialist. And I did this kind of sessions already quite some time in different water framework setups, in a lot of conferences everywhere in the world. But it's my first COP. So it's I'm a bit out of my comfort zone to see how water fits in this agenda. But who is VITO? The ambassador did explore already a bit what we are doing. So we are an independent research institute from Belgium. We believe that we can only make impact through a sustainable transition. We combine technologies and insights. We deliver objective science-based advice, and we focus both on the short-term and on the long-term technologies. And we collaborate with a lot of stakeholders in different sectors, and we work on a systemic change. We are almost 1,300 people, 61 nationalities, and we work in different sectors. So in this group, I work in the water department, and I coordinate water partnerships like Water for All, and I work on international projects. I will come back on that later with some examples of the WEFE nexus we are putting in place in least developing countries. So today, I already talked that I'm working in water, but this quote, I think, convinced me to be here at the COP. Because if mitigation is about carbon, then adaptation is about water. I don't think we need to recall on what happened lately in Spain to know that climate change will hit us by the water. So it's the first domain where the climate change is hitting us. So we will spotlight the power of integrated solutions in advancing climate adaptation and mitigation. And today, I must admit, I'm very, very honored. Our minister present at this session. Our Minister De Prateren, she's the keynote speaker of this event, and she's Deputy Minister President of the Government of Flanders, and she's also the Flemish Minister of Housing, Energy and Climate, Tourism and Youth. So give her a warm round of applause for Minister De Prateren.
Hello, good afternoon. Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me, and Katrien, for me as well. It's my first COP experience, and I'm very sure and convinced that water has a very important role here in this debate and at this COP. The water, energy, food ecosystem nexus is about understanding and managing often competing interests. The nexus is crucial for understanding the interconnections and for developing effective responses to the climate crisis. And water, of course, plays an important role in the climate change. First of all, access to water is one of the first challenges everywhere around the world, without exception. Also in Flanders, we also experienced some very hard times. And although Belgium is not really known for the good weather, we do have some hot summers, and we have experienced some summers with droughts. And we now face the results of that. We face cracks in our houses. We see that a lot of people who saved and who have worked their whole life to buy a house face the results of the climate change and of the droughts in Belgium. But that's not the only challenge. Floods with strong human and economical costs. The recent floodings in Spain brought back memories of the same type of water bomb Belgium experienced also in the summer of 2021. And these floodings must lead to an increased awareness and more climate action. And I hope it will have an impact also here on this COP this year. We should strengthen our efforts to address challenges related to the interlinkage between water, energy, food, poverty, security, nutrition, and so on. Addressing the water crisis in the interest of ensuring energy and food security is essential. I think this COP29, is a key platform for addressing these issues through the lens of the WEFE nexus, your organization and mobilizing of international funds for climate change action. Regarding providing funds for climate action, the government of Flanders is fully committing to fulfilling its international climate finance obligation under the Convention and the Paris Agreement. As a part of this effort, and I think it's a very important one, the Flemish International Climate Action Programme was launched. This call for proposal is a unique initiative aimed at Flemish companies to implement climate projects in developing countries. It is structured around 3 core pillars. The first one, firstly, climate action. The primary objective of all FICA projects is to contribute to climate mitigation and/or adaptation. We target multiple sectors, including agriculture, energy, water, biodiversity, and education. And for instance, one of those projects is one for local farmers to help them with innovative irrigation techniques and to help us with the growing demand on energy, food, and water. Secondly, fostering partnerships in the Global South is key. Although only Flemish organizations can submit applications, we actively promote with local organizations and communities. Additionally, we place a strong emphasis on multi-sector collaboration. By bringing together expertise from different sectors, we enrich the project and ensure their long-term sustainability. And thirdly, technology and innovation are central to FICAP's mission. At this moment, we have already 65 unique projects for funding. So that's a lot, and we are active in 31 countries. By the end of this year, we will have selected additional projects. So we are willing to expand the whole project. Regarding to the future of international climate finance, the government of Flanders will continue to uphold its commitments. the private sector also has to take part in this goal. And hopefully this COP will also result in a high collective ambition on climate finance and in an important part of the water discussion also in this COP. I wish you all a very nice afternoon and a very inspirational discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Minister De Prater, for this very interesting speech, and we will come back with some examples later on the program of the Flemish government. But as you might remember, I work in research. So you know that researchers like small experiments. So I would like to start with a small experiment that's quite crucial for the WEFE nexus. But don't be afraid, it's a very easy experiment. So I would like to invite you to watch to the arrows on the screen and to point in the direction of these arrows. Go ahead. Yes, I see some hands. Thank you for that, pointing that direction. Very good. But I see some hands also pointing the other direction, and they are also right. So what we just perceived, what we just experienced is perception. It's the way we look at things and how we perceive them. And in the WEFE nexus, we are talking about 4 different sectors. Sometimes it's only water and food. It can be water, energy, food, and ecosystem. We can add health. Also, the minister did add some housing, poverty. In fact, you can. It's also you can add a lot of other sectors as well. So the WEFE nexus is really the idea of finding the win-win-win situation or solution for different elements. And it's really aligning and balancing supply and demand in a fair way. And in this search in extreme events, empathy, awareness and perception will be crucial. So I will go into, this is an overview we made last year from a large session which was really focusing on the challenges of the WEFE nexus. With different speakers. It was an event in Brussels with large participation from DG INPA as well. And I found it quite an interesting visual to show again. I can't go into detail, but I think it gives the complexity of the WEFE nexus. And that's where it's about. And if I jump into 2 examples where Vito is playing an important partner, it's one on the Lake Tanganyika. It's East Africa, checking the boxes of least developing countries, and a very challenging area. Lake Tanganyika is the 2nd deepest and the longest lake of the world, and it counts for 70% of the world's surface water. It serves a population of 12 million people, and of course the Lake Tanganyika is facing a lot of challenges, pollutions, wastewater discharges, and of course it also gained the prize of one of the most endangered lakes of the world, which is not a very nice certificate, but it's important to underline that something needs to be done. So with a Team Belgium approach, together with Enable and the province and the Flanders and Europe funding, we are working on a water quality monitoring plan. And this is seems to be a water project, but in fact the bottom line of this project is of course to guarantee the fish stocks in the lake. Because within the lake, the 12 million of people, they are depending on the fish stocks of the Lake Tanganyika. Another small example, I'm going to Flanders, to Belgium, where we are working in a business park. Perhaps a business park is not really the most environment to work directly to think with food and with ecosystems. But in this case, we are implementing quite some technological innovations to collect rainwater from the different industries and to put them available for the farming farmers around the business park. This is one of the projects of the Blue Deal that's been funded by the Flemish government, and it's really developing a living lab. It's testing innovation, technology, but this is not only about technology. It has a long, long process of social engagement, citizen engagement, the system thinking approach who is behind putting all the stakeholders together. So this is really working with the local people, but thinking in a global way to solve problems, but act in a very local region. These are just two examples, but there are many, many more examples and many, many more important players in this field. And we can invite 4 people as our panelists. And I will start with to invite Stefano Signore. He's head of the unit for climate change, sustainable energy and nuclear safety of DG INPA of the European Union. My second speaker is Frank Martin Seifert. He's Earth Observation Applications Engineer at the European Space Agency. Then we have Saliha Dobradzik. She's head of the Programming and Innovation Unit of the Adaptation Fund. And then, last but not least, Sylvie Wabbes. She's Resilience Advisor and Technical Representative of the FAO. Thank you for taking the floor, and I will join you there. Yes, that's okay. Okay, taking this the arrows in mind for the WEFE nexus. I would like to ask you first to do a presentation of yourself and your organization, and to think on the WEFE nexus and how the WEFE nexus is put into practice by means, by human capital, by programs, and so on. We are very curious to know that.
Thank you very much for the invitation to this panel and to also give us the opportunity to discuss about this important topic. I'm Stefano Signore, head of unit for energy and climate change in DG INPA, which stands for DG International Partnership. And let me start perhaps from a couple of examples that I also draw from my personal experience and the field experience, where really we could see how this nexus is strong in our cooperation. I was in Lesotho in September and in Kyrgyzstan in October. In both cases, it was primarily about energy and also looking at how support further development on hydropower. And when you go in the countries, you see that in fact, if you talk hydropower, it's about water management. That you basically look at how to manage the water flows, so as they can produce energy, but also, of course, that you have a proper water management, not only for the country, but also for the whole region. In Lesotho, because Lesotho provides water for South Africa, and in Kyrgyzstan, because, of course, Kyrgyzstan is a major water power also for Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. And of course, on top of that, the impact that the management of the water or energy-related developments have on the agriculture, on food production, on the soil management, etc. So really, I mean, these were two powerful examples for me. Really, it's not possible to talk energy if you don't also look at water and implication. Now, from the point of view of the nexus, what we try to do, I think I would mention 4 elements which are important in my view. The first one is really to understand all these interdependencies. I mean, how the different areas interact with each other from an analytical point of view, you know, the knowledge, the scientific work. The second one is capitalizing on synergies and basically co-benefit. You know, if you apply renewable energy solution to irrigation, of course you can improve irrigation, but also have low carbon opportunities, or you can have, you know, nature-based solutions applied to agriculture. You reduce the use of pesticides, and you can also improve, of course, the agricultural practices. The third one is to understand and manage the trade-off, because of course there are trade-off in the nexus. So you mean typically if you want to increase food production, you will have more water use, so you can have also water depletion, or the increased use of pesticide that of course can pollute the environment. Or another typical example is the production of biofuel, which provide, let's say, sustainable energy, let's say, which can replace fossil fuel. But at the same time, if not done properly, this can also impact negatively on the environment. And last but not least is the governance, because of course all these different interlinkages and the complexity of the way they all interact with each other means that you really need a strong governance. First of all, in the government of the countries, because you need a strong interdepartmental coordination, so as you don't create silos where each of the different ministry work in isolation. But then, of course, also regional and international governance. I made the example of Lesotho and Central Asia. And of course, the broader, let's say, international community, the donors, the different development and financial partners. I will stop here for the benefit of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I remember that Sylvie, she needs to go a bit earlier. So I was thinking, Sylvie, to give you now the floor so that you can leave in time.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. I'm sorry about this constraint. It's an honor to be together this evening. I think it's already the evening by the light.
If you want, you can take
yes.
that set off. Yeah, perhaps.
Yes, it's already the evening, and it's a honor and pleasure to be here. I'm an agronomist. I'm a small-scale farmer. I'm trying to feed my family with fresh vegetables at least for 4 months in the year. Living in the north of Rome in Italy, the weather is quite good, but we are indeed experiencing climate change with water scarcity, drought, irregularity of the rains, and so really living it personally. So I would like to speak to you from my understanding, walking the talk of what it is to be from the farming production of food side of things. So I'm working in the Emergency and Resilience Division office in FAO, closely with my colleague Virginie on water and land issues. And the nexus for me is, for us, from emergency and a crisis point of view. We are at COP with a big dominating climate crisis, but I think the nexus is speaking about the multi-poly crisis we are in. And so we are having not only a climate crisis, but we're having environment biodiversity crisis together with the pollution. We're experiencing a water crisis also in terms of if you look at the latest report from the Commission on Economics of Water, it really coins very well the water crisis we are experiencing. And the energy crisis, it's felt differently, different level, but it's also there, especially with the increasing of the cost of the energy. And the overall result is a food crisis, especially in the most vulnerable and fragile countries, what we call especially those protracted crisis countries that are also affected by conflicts. We're having more than 282 million people today in more than 59 territories who cannot secure 1 meal per day. So that's the food crisis summary of especially those countries. And I really would like to focus this nexus importance for these most fragile, vulnerable countries, which have about 80% of their population living with a livelihood that depends on agriculture and the health of the ecosystems. So in these countries, water scarcity, water shortages, drought is one of the dominant features. It's a water crisis. The health of the ecosystem is also in a bad shape. Very often, very significant biodiversity losses in terms of forest and land, soil fertility. The degradation is very high also. And most of these people also don't have the proper energy access, and they are contributing to the deforestation, which is making everything worse. So I think you all know the picture and all know the situation, so I would just like to express that this solution, working on this nexus, if we bring in the urgency and the crisis perspective, it's extremely important on the way to address it. So that if you looking at the food crisis solutions, it must take into account water, energy, climate, and biodiversity or the environment for a resulting positive outcome for food security. And in that, the centrality is the risk and impact management. So I'm coming here a bit from the disaster risk reduction, disaster risk management, the extreme events as one of the biggest characteristics of climate change. Climate change is driving the increase in frequency, scale, and impact from extreme events. Drought is the biggest on nature, on food system, on water. It's really pretty dramatic with trillions of dollars which are lost, economic losses because of loss and damage in agriculture and agri-food system. So from the sort of crisis perspective going to the solution, what we are trying to advocate is to having always this multidisciplinary team. I think that was mentioned by a colleague in the intersectionality, but we need also to use both the specialists and the sort of broad agronomist knowledge, so that brings these specialties together. So the climate action can be coined as well as a water action, an energy action, a biodiversity action, reducing the fragmentation between all these actions so that water speaks into the food action speaks into the energy, water, and biodiversity action, and vice versa. So breaking this sort of a unique one side of the coin approach of just thinking water without bringing the whole suite of solutions which are necessary. This is what we're trying to apply in many of these fragile countries. And it's difficult because of the multidisciplinary approach which is needed, but also because of the fragmentation and the silo approach that we are holding. For example, we're having these 3 COPs this year, land degradation, biodiversity, and climate. This is really very much speaking to the nexus. And this is showing, again, food is addressed in all of these 3 global conventions. And food being part of the problem in overuse of resources, 70% of the fresh water, 30% of the energy demand, contributing to 30% of the greenhouse gas emission, contributing to many of the risks that are not managed today. The challenge is to really transform and transitioning this agri-food system, putting this nexus as the centrality of the solution. I'll stop here. We have different examples, but even ourselves, we are not applying it enough. And the nexus wording itself is not, how can I say, is not attractive enough as a solution. We'll need to find out the way to, perhaps better sell it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sylvie, for this input, and thank you for being so open to also explain that it's sometimes quite challenging to put it in practice, and I keep in mind that the Nexus name needs an update. So now I would like to give the floor to Frank. Maybe you can check if the mic is working and your presentation is on as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to this panel. I'm coming from a different perspective, but water, energy, food, ecosystem, each of them by itself an important element of climate change, biodiversity. Minister Depreter was mentioning as well health. But all of these, if we want to manage, we have to observe, we have to measure, because independent information is the prerequisite before we can manage anything. Together with the European Commission, ESA has set up the most comprehensive observation system of the Earth. That's the Copernicus system. It is part of our three strengths of satellites related to science, related to meteorology, but the most important is nowadays Copernicus, which provides a systematic observation of our globe every day. Every day, this system produces 30 terabytes of data and provides us the possibility to understand better water, energy, food, and ecosystems. The Copernicus system is, on the space side, consistent of several satellites in different domains, looking at the radar, looking at high-resolution optical, medium resolution. We were looking at requirements how to understand our planet better. We are currently increasing the number of satellites. In 3 weeks' time, Sentinel-1 will get its third satellite up in orbit. To have, one failed 2 years ago, to have it again as a full functional system. But we are as well expanding towards a new members of the Sentinel family related to hyperspectral observations, longer wavelength radar observations, very important, related to food, to vegetation, land surface temperature related to desertification, but as well on the atmosphere, CO2, and on the cryosphere, not to forget the radiometer and altimeter missions. With these missions and the next generation of the existing Sentinels, we are trying to provide a bigger picture of what is happening on our planet. We are measuring the pulse of our planet. We cannot do this alone with satellite data. We need the observation on ground. We need we need in situ knowledge. We need the knowledge of the people living in the area. And only by combining all these elements, we will be able to come closer to a solution of this nexus. For me, systematic observations provide the fundamental backbone of what we need to help our planet to keep it in a livable solution. I'm working for that, and many colleagues at ESA, the European Commission, and for this, Stefano, we are working together in several areas in Latin America, in the Philippines, and in the future as well in Africa. I'm looking forward to further cooperation with INPA because there we are bringing the information and the knowledge within the countries together to advance for the better living of the people there. But for this, we need as well finance, and I think I hand over directly to my other colleague here on the panel.
Thank you so much, Frank, for this insight. Yes.
Thank you so much. So my name is Saliha Debardzik, and I'm with the Adaptation Fund. And we are a fund that was established under this process, the UNFCCC process, created under the Kyoto Protocol, but now serving also the Paris Agreement. And we invest in developing countries worldwide that are party to either Kyoto or Paris Agreement. And we invest in adaptation. So that is our mission. And we try to reach the most vulnerable communities on the ground. We now have over 180 projects globally in around 110 countries, and have invested 1.2 billion, actually over US dollars. And this portfolio is growing and accelerating. We are so the way we invest is through our implementing entities, but it's really the countries that determine the priorities. So when we receive a proposal, it has to be endorsed by the country, and it has to be in line with their priorities, national adaptation priorities, and as evidenced by NAPs, NDCs, or sectoral priorities for the country. And although as a fund, we're not prescriptive on any sector or any particular approach, really, what we do find is that these sectors of water, agriculture, especially, are well understood to be highly sensitive and are often prioritized. And this is reflected in our portfolio, which really where the water sector, the food, agriculture sectors are the leading areas or themes in the portfolio as a whole. So I don't remember exactly, and I mean this changes with every cycle when we twice a year approve new projects. But I believe it's around maybe 15-20% of the whole portfolio is roughly dedicated to water, and a similar proportion to agriculture / food security. So these are very important. Now, it's not easy to classify our projects as belonging to a particular topic or theme. Actually, when you go into a project, you will see that there are many different topics and themes usually within a project, and most of them, I would say, are technically multi-sectoral. And maybe there's one or two sectors that dominate. But often there is a mix of... by the way, because the Adaptation Fund's mandate is to support concrete action on the ground, in all our projects have... the main component actually leads to some tangible change, usually a demonstration project, proof of concept, so real investments on the ground combined with, let's say, technical assistance or policy reform or setting up something, soft investments of sort that are necessary to get to the, let's say, the harder investments. And those are not necessarily gray infrastructure, big works. You can't do that with the scale of finance that we offer, which is basically around $10 million for single country projects and up to $14 million for, excuse me, regional projects. But you can do some things, and what we're seeing very often in these projects, there is a mix of interventions that address both the water sector and the agriculture, food sector. So it is not really possible to build resilience, I would say, this is what I'm seeing, without taking a holistic approach. It is actually very easy to get on the path of maladaptation unless you actually look at the different, look at the system holistically. So in an agricultural project, you would have often afforestation and with a view of better water retention, better watershed management, having buffer zones and those sorts of things. Because, I think to us all it's quite logical to put it that way. So in a project where resilience, adaptation is the main mission, that's the mandate of the fund, so we of course prioritize that. Then this is, I think, what organically needs to happen. The combination of the nexus, combination of these different dimensions. We are, again, since we're focused on adaptation, energy hasn't really been a big, a theme in our project. So on the periphery, yes, let's see, we have projects that, very few projects that actually look at the water resources and their impacts on energy, on the energy sectors, like the hydro sector. We do have, I would say, a couple. We have some projects that combine, let's say, renewable energy with irrigation / food production. So in that sense, there are these linkages. But because we're an adaptation, again, fund, it's not something that is seen systemically as part of these projects. But I don't think that's correct, because all these themes are actually vulnerable to climate change. So the energy sector is, of course, highly vulnerable to climate change. So I feel there is a bit of a gap, and part of it is awareness gap, but there's also this maybe perception issue. Maybe there's a sense that the Adaptation Fund wouldn't consider financing a project on resilience in the energy sector, which is not true. If the countries prioritized such a project, we would be very open to that. So please spread the word, by the way, if you have the chance. Let me maybe stop here. I hope there will be a chance for questions and more interaction.
Thank you so much for this introduction. I saw a lot of people taking notes, so I think it's very interesting to get to know the Adaptation Fund a bit better. Referring to Frank, the Sentinel-2 are the ones we are also as Vito using to support the water quality monitoring in Lake Tanganyika. But it's true, we are facing a large gap of data and knowledge to calibrate and to validate the satellite data. So although the technology is there, it's not always easy to implement it in the least developing countries. So working on this technology innovation and also with our funding agencies here, what are the main technology or innovations we need to put it into practice? I hear that energy is perhaps not really adaptation, but if we look future-proof infrastructure, I don't think that's it's a problem. Do you see a large next step we need to put it into practice? I see a hand. And perhaps I also invite you to ask a question to the other panelists.
Yes. If I may talk, there's one big technology innovation gap that would be a win-win on many aspects. And that's the energy for these most vulnerable people in most vulnerable countries. They are using firewood for cooking. You cannot hear. They're using firewood. I think it's, yes, you... Maybe you're out of battery. You want to use mine? No, don't worry. Technology is failing us. Technology. No, I just would like... Is it okay now? Yes? Yes, okay. Technology is very much needed on this question of providing reliable, cheap energy to people living in urban and rural areas. This is not only a rural area issue. For cooking their meal in these, especially sub-Saharan Africa, where charcoal and the deforestation is really there to respond to this basic need, that you need energy to cook your meal. And this has massive impacts in terms of the degradation of the ecosystems that then triggers the problem with not protecting the water sources, etc., etc. And so this would be a win-win from a mitigation point of view also, because as you know, burning wood is not good for the greenhouse gas emission. I mean, I don't need to go into the detail, but that is an area where technology should be made available and cheap enough to replace these firewood and charcoal burning that is still the dominant sources of energy for people who are the most vulnerable to the climate crisis and to all the other crises. And with this, I'm afraid I have to leave you, but maybe, I don't know which one of the panelists would like to take that point, or you want to bring some other technology elements. Yes?
Well, related to firewood, I think about 10 years ago there was a huge initiative to bring more effective stoves towards Africa. Nowadays, we move one step further, and it's much related to solar energy, which is it's going stepwise. It's going stepwise, and I fully agree. Some local deforestation with respect to having firewood, with respect to producing charcoal, has its certain impact, and specifically as well on the overall ecosystem. But I would more support the local communities in using more effective energy solutions than condemn them for struggling to get their meal.
I'm not condemning.
No,
That's
okay.
No, it's a fact.
It's a fact. It's a fact. Yeah. Or criticizing. Or
No,
it is.
we have to address that.
Yeah.
That's a big need. It's a gap.
It is a need. Exactly. It's a
We
need.
are left
It's a need.
alone with there's no alternative. If there's no
Yeah.
cheap alternative, they have to do
Then
that.
it will be like that.
That's
Exactly.
what has to happen.
So
I'm
work.
not criticizing.
Working on these very practical solutions is something to advance.
Yeah, and I think lately I saw a graph that was giving the water footprint of the different sources of energy. And wood is, of course, the most consuming water energy resources. So also to tackle the WEFE, I think we have a good action now. Thank you for that, Sylvie.
But related to wood, related to forest, we are having much stronger drivers for deforestation. That is expansion of related to agriculture, which is still the biggest one. Then we are having mining, where forests are cleared to go to the geological resources of the earth, and building infrastructure. And then, of course, illegal logging to have a monetary benefit of the forest resources. So these are much stronger impacts on forests and wood than the local extraction of firewood.
Thank you for that. Perhaps Stefano, yes?
Look, you have asked about innovation, about let's say what kind of innovative solution. Maybe, of course, I would have certainly things to say in the area of energy, but in fact, I think that since we speak about the nexus, one area which really comes to my mind is the irrigation. I see that when we are on the field, there is a strong drive for really innovative irrigation techniques, smart metering, the application of digital solution, being able to measure, let's say, distance digitalized measuring, basically in a context where water becomes a scarce resource, you have to manage more carefully. Therefore, old habits, which by the way, we also are champions in Europe of using the water very easily, cheaply, giving away in the periods when there is abundance and then not having when there is scarcity. That brings, let's say, not only, of course, a broader need of river basin management, water management, and so on, but also of having modern irrigation techniques that can, let's say, ensure a fair and equitable repartition, let's say, allocation of this scarce resource.
Thank you, Stefano.
Maybe I'd like to add a little bit, just building on these ideas, by the way, which are very, you're speaking my language. But also I think, for example, flood management, particularly using nature-based solutions. So whether it's in urban settings or the reservoirs and basins, and there are all these, I mean, there's so many technical terms for them, swales and rain gardens now in the cities. I mean, all these things really help with water management, and that of course has implications on the productivity of the soil and so on. I think just wanted to put in a plug for the Adaptation Fund, that one of our 3 pillars of work, and I'm not going to get into a lot of details, is innovation. And so we have really advanced we've made some strides on supporting innovation for adaptation, and we're trying to do more. It's a growing program for us. And innovation in the context of the Adaptation Fund can mean a lot of things. It can mean the latest technological solutions, cutting edge, and in fact we have we're starting this collaboration with the ESA, European Space Agency, where our implementing entities are going to benefit from a seminar presenting all these wonderful products and services that may be useful to them. We shall see. Down to indigenous or traditional practices that may have fallen out of use, but now with climate change make sense to revive and perhaps adjust and modify. But so there is a real range of what innovation can mean. It can also mean doing something that's well established in one area, but new to the project target area. For us, it also means investing in sectors that have not been traditionally addressed, and energy, again, is a sector I would personally, from a technical side, love to see a strong project on energy resilience, just to have it out there, because I think they're quite rare. And so there, I think all these different ways that we should be thinking about it. I already mentioned nature-based solutions as and I'm mentioning it again because we really need to be thinking holistically. I'm a little bit repeating what has already been said on that in a different way, but the thing about these holistic systems, and I think food, energy, water, there are real linkages between them. When you're using one of them unsustainably, it has negative implications on the others. Conversely, once you switch into a more sustainable way, you very soon, I believe, see improvements in the other elements of the nexus. So that's something really worth keeping in mind as we think about investments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and also your proposition to inject energy approach in the adaptation funds inspires me for my next question, which is in fact now it's COP29. We had already 1 week. We have some days left. Tomorrow is a very important day. I think the closing remarks will go on that. But before going to the closing, I wanted to ask, what is your work for the coming years? What are your for the coming year in the preparation of COP30? Are there any action points you have already in?
Can you hear me? Because I can't hear myself.
Yeah.
Okay. It's again?
Yeah.
I don't know. What am I doing to these things? Well, I will say that for the Adaptation Fund, we are actually going to be focusing also on locally led adaptation a lot over the coming years. So we continue our work on innovation. We will invest more, I think, effort in that area. We always, our largest part of our portfolio are adaptation projects that the countries prioritize. But yes, we have these additional funding pots for innovation and locally led adaptation. And locally led adaptation is essentially an effort to devolve funding decisions to the most appropriate local level. So those tend to end up being a series, large number of very small projects at the local level. And very often these projects have to do again with agriculture, food production, and have some nexus elements even at that very, very small scale.
Thank you. Stefano?
Well, of course, we as European Union, we have many strands of activities, so it would be difficult to summarize it all. But let's say certainly we will keep focusing a lot on our work on renewables, renewable energy, but also broader electrification, which means enhance storage, grid management, transmission and distribution, in order to support socioeconomic development and climate action. But also on the climate side, there are a lot of strands of work in order to enhance innovation in the way we support disaster risk financing, climate resilience across the board with partnerships, let's say, with the number of actors, be it, let's say, the Global Shield or the CDRI, or also in the different regions through the Green-Blue Alliance in the Pacific, or a number of activities that we are carrying out in the Caribbean in support of small island development states. So, as I said, it's difficult to summarize everything, but definitely it will be another full year in terms of our engagement in the energy and climate space. Thanks.
Well, on our side, clearly we will intensify cooperations and we will increase cooperation with other partners, because that is the way forward. From the space agency perspective, for me personally, the launch of our biomass satellite, which will measure within the tropical region a biomass of forests, providing as well energy. Will be it's foreseen for April next year. Will be one highlight. We are continuing to work to increase our research and development towards in all the sectors: food, energy, water, ecosystem, bringing those as well together towards demonstration, to work together with cooperating partners, with investment banks, with funds, with the different DGs, to provide this wealth of information combined with the knowledge of all other sectors to help us all to move forward with respect to climate change.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing these insights and knowledge with us. Thank you, Stefano, Saliha, and Frank, for being panelists here today. And then I would like to give the floor now to Thomas. Siwi from the Water Pavilion. So tomorrow it's the Water Day, and Thomas will close this session with some insights on this session and some looking forward to the water agenda. Thank you.
Yes, a big applaud. Katrine, yeah, maybe we should let you leave the stage. Am I hearable? Good, good. So, Katrine, water and climate friends, as the excellent speakers and panelists on this theme have already highlighted, we cannot underestimate the importance of a WEFE nexus and why researchers need to collaborate and work with policymakers and business sector to tackle and foster innovation, but also policy coherence in the domains of water, energy and food, supporting the transition towards a circular and low carbon economy, not only in Europe, but in the world. So water is a resilience multiplier that is providing greater understanding into how partnerships, knowledge sharing and innovation can prepare the most exposed communities to better cope with shocks, adapt to change and transform within the planetary boundaries. If climate finance, capacity development, technology and partnerships support water action, water can connect sectors and promote system use, reducing risk and increase resilience. Why? We believe that we need to explore technological and policy and social innovation. We need to consider how these challenges can be addressed through technological developments, policy advancements, and also behavioral change. We have to create space for exchange and discussion that highlights the importance of co-creation of solutions and integration of water resource management approaches across urban as well as rural areas. We have to share good governance principles to strengthen the effective water stewardship. We have to outline ways in which clear responsibilities and coordination between regions, countries and water authorities can enhance climate resilience and adaptation. But we also have to provide greater understanding in how partnerships, knowledge sharing and innovation can prepare these most exposed communities as well as businesses to better cope with shocks, adapt to change and transform within the planetary boundaries again. And though this is a transitional COP, where the focus is climate finance, who funds it, who receives it, and how much. Issues that have been some of the most contentious in past COPs. Boosting climate global finance is instrumental for sustainable growth. It's instrumental for the WEFE nexus and job opportunities, as well as influencing less pollution, more secure and affordable energy and healthy ecosystem services. But it also ensuring all countries and sectors and communities that they are empowered to by themselves design resilience and prosperity into the WEFE nexus and their livelihoods. So elevating climate finance to meet the vital effects on people and planet involves rapid and bold decisions. However, this is not only a responsibility within the UNFCCC process, but bilaterally between countries, regions, sectors, industries and even companies. And talking a little bit about the global goal on adaptation, as you know, in COP28 we marked a significant breakthrough with the adaptation of the global goal for adaptation. The framework aiming to reduce water scarcity and enhance global resilience to floods, droughts, heat waves and rising sea levels. And being a transitional COP, the results of the 2-year work program will be presented next year at COP30. Why the focus here in Baku is so important? Because it's the work program to develop the indicators that negotiators are tasked with defining in terms of measurable, ensuring that adaptation efforts are not only ambitious but also actionable. Now there's nearly 9,000 possibilities that have been identified, leaving the formidable task of whittling down what is actually meaningful and feasible in terms of the report burdens. And the 78 experts are now questioning or sending the question to the negotiators, what exactly do you want us to focus on? So that is a big if they will succeed within the last 4 days here at COP, and a big worry for us who are engaged in this area. But looking ahead to this second week, the most important issue for water is, as you said, the Presidency Day on Water and Agriculture. It's slated for tomorrow, where we hope that there will be a blue wave of discussions on water at the COP on that tomorrow. We already have referenced over 50 events this second week that will conjure water, in addition to those that already happened in the Water for Climate Pavilion. So water is on the rise. The level is rising in the right direction, not referring to the sea level rise. And this includes the Water Action Event that falls under the UNFCCC mechanism for non-state actors called the Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Adaptation, which is currently actually the only formal UNFCCC programmatic event on water. But most of all, we look with great excitement towards the COP29 presidency-sponsored declaration on water for climate action. This voluntary declaration aims to create a home for ongoing water discussions within the UNFCCC and to create a greater political leadership and continuity for water action in between each and every COP. That is essential to make that stepping stone movement coming alive. So with this in mind, we fully support the Baku dialogue, of course, on water for climate action. It aims to promote dialogues and partnership. It strengthens the generation of scientific evidence, which is of the importance, and enhance the water-related climate policy actions. So by saying that, I would say that recognizing and empowering local authorities and institutions and communities, there is a significant role to play an active part in the implementation of national strategies. The NDCs is up for grab, the NAPs is as well, and we know that the decision by them will live on to 2035. So with that, let's close that say that to ensure that water and climate resilience is human-based but also ecosystem-based, we need techniques, we need a technological solutions, we need financial means, we need nature-based solutions, we need a human and ecosystem perspective to operationalize such policies also on the ground. So thank you for listening, and warmly welcome to dialogues and sessions about water and climate, or how to become another partner in the Water for Climate Collective in the Water for Climate Pavilion. And finally, offered by Katrine, welcome to stay for a hydro-energetic balance provided by the Benelux Pavilion here. There's drinks served soon. So thank you.